In this game, you play as Bartz, who's also known as John Fantasy V. He's a wanderer who goes wherever the wind takes him. Unfortunately, the wind crystal has exploded, and so now he's pivoted to following meteorites. At the crash site, you encounter the Princess of Tycoon, Lena. She's on a journey to find her missing father, since he has yet to return after going to investigate the whole exploding crystal fiasco. After a couple minutes of flip-flopping, Bartz decides to tag along, and so you, her, and an amnesiac named Galef team up to figure out what's going on. This gets us the trophy, Take the First Step. The only way to reach the Shrine of the Wind Crystal is by sea, and so we attempt to steal a pirate ship. It doesn't go well. Their captain, Ferris, has a change of heart when she realizes that both she and Lena possess similar pendants. As a result, she decides to take us to the Wind Shrine in the hopes of figuring out the truth. And so our party climbs to the top of the shrine, where we encounter the Wind Raptor. Inside the crystal room, our party is granted the Blessing of the Four Crystals, so that we can go on a quest to try and prevent the other three from being shattered. Receiving this power gets us the trophy, Passion, Essence of Wind. Their blessing then allows us to draw power from the shards of the Wind Crystal, granting us access to 5 normal jobs and 1 wacky job, Blue Mage. So the way blue magic works is that you can learn certain enemy abilities as castable spells. The game tutorializes this in a pretty smart way. So there are these enemies early on named Wild Neck, and they have an ability called 3 question marks. By the time I saw this, I had not learned any blue magic, and so I was like, oh, so this is how blue magic looks before you learn it. In reality, that ability is literally called 3 question marks. This misunderstanding on my part then encouraged me to experiment with trying to learn the ability. In the process, I figured out that just seeing it in action wasn't enough. You have to get hit with the ability to learn it. And so I think the developers were betting on players making that exact assumption, which makes this encounter a nice subtle way of teaching the player how to learn blue magic without relying on a clunky pile of tutorial text. While I was testing out these new jobs, I got the trophy Apprentice Warrior for defeating 100 enemies. Our party then sets off for the Water Crystal, which requires us to pass through the Torna Canal. Here we're attacked by a creature named Karlabos. Unfortunately, while we manage to escape its whirlpool, the sea dragon that pulls our ship, Sildra, does not. And so we're forced to drift wherever the waves take us until we wash up alongside a bunch of other abandoned ships. When we attempt to leave, we're ambushed by a siren. The fight against her ended up being pretty interesting since she switches between a living form and an undead form, with each having their own abilities and resistances they have to work around. After we leave the ship graveyard, we then have to head up to a mountain to the north to find Lena's father's Windrake, Hiryu. Shortly after reaching the mountain, we get 2 trophies back to back. Thrifty Spender for earning 10,000 gil, and Rookie Treasure Hunter for opening 10% of the chests in the game. Then, partway up the mountain, we run into a pair of poachers named Magisa and Forza. After killing them, we grab Hiryu and we're able to fly over to the Kingdom of Walls to ask about their crystal. Since I didn't want to break the flow earlier, now's a good time to mention the cause of the crystal's destruction, which is that a guy named Sid figured out how to use technology to juice extra power out of them. Turns out, if you do that for long enough, they explode. And so we go to ask the King of Walls to stop doing that. He isn't convinced that the same thing will happen to his crystal though, so he refuses. Before we have a chance to argue further, a meteorite crashes next to the crystal tower, and so we head over to survey the damage. While heading north, we encounter a Bandersnatch, which unlocks the trophy Field Research Basic. And then at the top of the tower, we encounter a creature named Garula, who's apparently been driven crazy by some kind of dark force. After we beat it into submission, we watch as the water crystal shatters. We pick up most of the shards, only for the tower to begin sinking into the sea, which forces us to flee before we can grab the last one. After we're saved by the injured and dying Sildra, we get the trophy Devotion, Essence of Water. From the crystal shards we did manage to grab, we get 5 new jobs, so let's go over them in order of complexity. First, we have the Red Mage, who can use both black and white magic, just not very well. Next, we have the Summoner, whose summonable creatures we'll be stumbling upon periodically. Next, we have the Berserker, who permanently has the Berserk status effect. This causes them to perform basic attacks automatically. Said attacks are aimed at random enemies and do extra damage, with the main trade-off being that it removes their ability to do things like use skills and defend. After this, we have the Mystic Knight, who is able to enchant their weapons with spells. This can allow you to hit weaknesses with elemental magic, or can let you apply status effects while also attacking physically. Finally, we have the Time Mage. They're one of the most useful jobs in the game, with their ability to speed up party members becoming just about essential past a certain point. I think it's useful now to bring up one of the best things about Final Fantasy V, which is its handling of the job system. Basically, each job can be leveled up for each party member. Doing so will unlock the job's unique abilities, so that said abilities can be equipped while using other jobs. For example, a combination that I ended up getting a lot of mileage out of is having a time mage with white magic. This turned them into a really powerful supporting unit that basically held up the rest of the party. Getting back to the story, our party figures out that inside the meteorite that crashed near Walls, there's a teleporter that's linked to a different meteorite that crashed in the Kingdom of Karnak. Unfortunately, during Bart's past adventures, a warrant was put out for his arrest, and so we're thrown into Karnak Castle's dungeon where we run into Sid. When it's discovered that the fire crystal is starting to break, we're let out of prison and allowed to delve into the fire-powered boat so that we can turn off its engine to prevent it from doing any more damage. Down in the engine room, we run into the Queen of Karnak, who, like Garula, is being controlled. She attacks us with a creature called Liquid Flame. After we win, we go to the fire crystal, only for a mind-controlled soldier to beat us to it. He activates the contraption, causing the crystal to shatter. Without its power, Castle Karnak begins to collapse. And so we have to skedaddle out within 10 minutes, all while grabbing 15 chests that will be unobtainable if we don't get them now. The resulting explosion launches the shards of the fire crystal into the air, with 3 of them landing nearby. This allows us to absorb their jobs and get the trophy Courage, Essence of Flame. The first of these new jobs is called Beastmaster. With it, you're able to capture weakened enemies and then use them in battle. Next, we have the Geomancer, who can manipulate the environment to create various spells. Finally, we have ninjas who can use a variety of unique techniques and skills. The one that I found the most useful was their ability to wield 2 weapons at once. Our next objective after leaving Karnak is to find Sid's grandson, Mid. Together, they'll be able to rework the fire-powered ship to run without needing the fire crystal. To this end, we enter the Library of the Ancients to find him. On the way through, we encounter the fire god Ifrit. By defeating him, we win the honor of summoning him in battle. And then at the end of the library, we're attacked by a demon named Byblos, who is attempting to prevent us from disrupting the awakening of his master. We're then able to grab Mid, and then he and his grandfather start fixing the boat. This touching family reunion causes Galuf to remember his granddaughter, along with some important details about his past. It turns out Galuf is not from this world. 30 years ago, he and his allies came to this one, and sealed a warlock named Exdeath using the power of this world's crystals. The strain that Sid's invention has been putting on them has been weakening the seal, and so Galuf decided to return to prevent it from breaking completely. By the time he's done explaining this, our ship is ready, and so we set off. Within a couple minutes, we land our boat on the island of Crescent, where a whirlpool immediately eats our boat. Luckily, on the southern half of the island, we find a black chocobo, who we're able to force to fly us back to the mainland. This gets us the trophy, Endangered Creature. Apparently, it also ate the other shards that exploded off the fire crystal, and so we get 2 new jobs. First we have Ranger, which is one of the only jobs that can equip bows. And then we have the job Bard, which can play various songs during battle for a wide range of effects. We then ride the Black Chocobo back to the Library of the Ancients, where Sid gives us a lead on Lena's dad. He was apparently spotted going into a desert to the south. When we travel into the desert, we screw up our sand walk, and so we're attacked by a worm. Eventually though, we make our way through, and then we reach the abandoned town of Gone. When we attempt to reach Lena's dad, we end up falling into a trap, which drops us into some ruins beneath Gone. We also learn that Ferris is Lena's sister. After wandering around for a couple minutes, we eventually find a teleporter, which sends us to some similar ruins beneath Crescent. Here we find an airship, and so we're able to fly back to the surface. This gets us the trophy, Ancient Relic. Unfortunately, a giant crayfish apparently made its home near the airship, so it grabbed on before we flew away. With our newfound freedom, I decided to explore around a little, and so I ended up going north to the town of Istory. In the forest nearby, we randomly run into the god of lightning, Rama. I was lucky enough to have just purchased some new weapons that were enchanted with lightning, so that made things a little bit more complicated. Luckily, the Mystic Knight's magic overrides a weapon's pre-existing effect. After this, I went back to Castle Walls, because earlier in the game a character had mentioned that the goddess of ice Shiva was sealed somewhere in the castle. At the time I looked around and failed to find her, but finding Ifrit and Rama made me think I just missed something. Turns out, yes, she isn't even really that hidden, I just missed the door. So I finally managed to find her, and so we add both her and Rama to our stock of summons. We then fly back over to Gone, where we watch as the ruins beneath it emerge from the ground. It turns out that in the past, an ancient people called the Ronkins used the power of the Earth Crystal to levitate their civilization, with a technology similar to what Sid recently invented. Its reactivation puts the Earth Crystal at risk, so we have to go and shut it off. To reach that high in the atmosphere, we need to upgrade our airship with some adamantite, which we find in Galuf's meteorite. As we leave though, we're attacked by an adamantoise. With our upgraded ship, we're able to fly up to the Ronka ruins, where we then have to fight its defense systems. In the process, we learn 2 new blue magic spells. Missile, and Flamethrower. This brought my total up to 10, unlocking the trophy, Learning, Elementary. We then fight the main weapon, the Soul Cannon. Inside the Ronka ruins, I happen to get 2 more trophies. The first was Smart Saver for accruing 100,000 gil, and the second was Experienced Warrior for defeating 1,000 enemies. At the end of the ruins, we find Lena's dad, who tells us to fight a creature named Archaeo Avis. This battle ended up being a bit of a strange one. You see, the Archaeo Avis has multiple phases, with each using and being healed by a specific element. Since Lena's dad told us it changes its weakness at will, I assumed that the element was changing randomly. It wasn't. Once you get through the first 4 phases, the Archaeo Avis will revive into its final form. Here, it can't be damaged by any of the elements, so I had to switch out the weapons I had equipped to Bartz and Faris to do any meaningful damage. Killing the Archaeo Avis gave Lena enough ability points to master the White Mage job, which gets us the trophy, Job Trainee. We then go into the Crystal Room, where we learn that Lena's dad is being controlled into destroying the Earth Crystal. His attack against us is interrupted by another meteorite, this one containing Geluf's granddaughter, Krele. Seeing her fully restores his memory. We ended up being too late to stop the crystal from shattering, which breaks the seal on Exdeath. He then teleports into the ruins, uses the power of the crystal shards to attack us, and then he leaves for Geluf's world to begin destroying their crystals as well. While Exdeath's use of the crystal shards drained them of their power, Lena's dad sacrifices his life force to restore them. This gets us the trophy, Hope, Essence of Earth. We also receive 4 new jobs. The first is Samurai, which is the only job other than Freelancer which is capable of wielding katanas. This is notable because katanas are the only weapon type which is capable of landing critical hits. Next we have Dragoons, who are able to use their jump ability to leap out of harm's way for a set period of time before then landing on the enemy they targeted. This ability is extra effective when equipped with a spear, because it causes them to do double the damage. Next we have Dancer, who is able to perform 1 of 4 dances at random. The first 3 have unique effects, allowing you to either absorb their HP or MP, or confuse them. The 4th option is called Sword Dance, which can do a surprising amount of damage. And finally, we have the Chemist. They can apparently do a ton of stuff involving items and support abilities, but in practice I didn't actually use any of it, so I'm the wrong person to ask. In the aftermath of the Ronka ruins exploding, Geluf and Krele decide to return to their world to fight against Exdeath. While our party does offer to help, Geluf refuses since there's no guarantee we'd be able to come back to this world. Unfortunately, Bartz and his crew decide to try and help minutes after they leave, so now we're forced to go on a fetch quest to gather the remaining power of the meteorite so that we can make the trip. After we visit the second one, we're attacked by 6 creatures all named Parabolos. The trick with this fight is that whenever one is killed, it will try to revive any of the others who are dead, so you're supposed to kill them all at once. We then go to the third meteorite, only to find out that the god of the earth, Titan, has decided to make it his house. We beat him up and force him to become a summon. And then finally, we go to the fourth meteorite, where we're attacked by the Chimera Brain. With the power of the 4 meteorites, we're able to warp to Geluf's world, which gets us the trophy, Whole New Realm. Our first order of business upon entering this new dimension is to get abducted by Exdeath's minions. This forces Geluf to come in and rescue us. In the process, he has a quick clash with Exdeath's top general, Gilgamesh, only for Gilgamesh to leave after a couple turns. With our party reunited, we begin our escape via the big bridge, only to get ambushed by Gilgamesh, who actually puts up a bit of a fight this time. Right before we make it off the bridge, Exdeath activates a barrier around his castle, which ends up launching us across the world. As we search for a way back to Geluf's house, we end up running into an undead creature named Tyrannosaur. There's apparently a lot of easy ways to kill it, but I knew none of them. Instead, I struggled through everything it threw at me. I also learned that if you try to absorb HP from an undead enemy, it kills you. Ultimately though, we find a way to contact Krele, and so she drives over with her Windrake to pick us up. After arriving in Ball, we learn that the Windrake is dying, and so we have to find some dragon grass, which can allegedly be found on the mountain of Drakenvale. On the way up, we encounter one of Geluf's old allies, Kelger. Talking to him causes us to learn that Bartz's father, Dorgan, was actually one of the 4 who fought Exdeath 30 years ago. This is a slight tangent, but I actually appreciate how this game doesn't treat this reveal like some kind of big prophesized hero type thing. It's kind of just treated like a funny coincidence more than anything. Anyway, we head up to Drakenvale and learn that in this universe, dragon grass is sentient and tries to kill you. Once we've healed the Windrake, we're able to fly over and join in on an attack against Exdeath's forces, led by another of Geluf's allies, Zezat. Before we can begin begin our assault, we're ambushed by a bunch of demons who are being led by Gilgamesh, and so we fight him alongside a creature named Enkidu. After we defeat them, Zazat reveals the plan for our attack. We're going to use a submarine to sneak into one of the 4 towers that's maintaining the barrier, and then we'll disable it. While Zazat goes to the bottom of the tower to destroy the barrier's generator, we climb to the top to destroy the antenna, which is guarded by a demon named Atomos. The fight itself is pretty simple, but it's also quite unique. Basically, Atomos will use the spell Comet repeatedly until it kills one of our party members, at which point it will gradually pull them towards it. If a party member gets too close, Atomos will send them to a different dimension, removing them from the fight. Occasionally, it will also use spells like Slow, and so this made it necessary to counteract it with a Time Mage. After we destroyed the antenna, we learned that Zazat knew in advance that whoever was responsible for destroying the generator would be stuck down there and they would die. And so we have no choice but to leave while he sacrifices himself. This gets us the trophy, Entrusted Hearts. On the bright side, we get to keep his submarine, which we use to go and find the sage Guido, in the hopes of learning more about Exdeath and his motives. His origin stems back to a location called the Forest of Moor. There, a tree was used to seal away countless evil spirits, with all of that dark energy eventually merging into a single being, Exdeath. At the moment, he is seeking some unknown thing within the forest, and so our party heads over to try and beat him to it. The moment we enter the forest, we encounter a new enemy who gets us over the threshold for Field Research Advanced. And then, after exploring for around 20 minutes, we manage to get the trophy, Veteran Treasure Hunter. As we delve deeper into the forest, Exdeath begins burning it all to the ground. This forces us to hide underground until the flames pass. Once they do, we're able to reach the burnt remains of the guardian tree at the center of the forest. When we go inside it, we're attacked by 4 crystal-like masses. Without really considering it further, we destroy them, only for us to then be informed by Exdeath that they were actually the seals that were protecting the crystals from him. Since we're clearly outmatched, Krele attempts to save us. Turns out adding a 14-year-old didn't really help our odds. Ultimately though, Gelef pushes forward to protect his granddaughter. He sacrifices his life to do enough damage to force Exdeath to flee for the time being. With the last of his strength and the aid of the Guardian Tree, Gelef is able to entrust his strength to Krele, and so she joins our party in his place. This unlocks the trophy, Powers Bequeathed. The 4 of us then head inside Exdeath's castle and begin our ascent to the top. On the way, we encounter a creature named Carbuncle. Then, near the top of the castle, we run into Gilgamesh once again. Even after he unleashes his full power, it's clear he's no match for us. To punish him for his repeated failures, Exdeath casts him into the void, never to be seen again. And then we finally make our way to the top to confront Exdeath. Befitting his role as a warlock, his arsenal of attacks primarily centers on magic, with his first phase featuring the widest range of spells that he'll be able to use during the fight. There are 2 here that I thought were particularly worth mentioning. The first is Reverse Polarity, which moves the front row of your party to the back and vice versa. This wasn't too much of a hassle since 2 of my party members were rangers, but it did mean that my healer was vulnerable until I moved them back. The second spell that I thought was notable is Doom, which will kill the person it's cast on after 30 seconds. Once you get Exdeath below 16,000 HP, he'll switch to a simpler attack roster, consisting of high-level elemental spells, a standard physical attack, and then a unique physical attack called Vacuum Wave. In this phase, he also takes 2 actions per turn, so we can deal a lot of damage really fast. After we kill Exdeath, we watch as the remaining crystals shatter. Next thing we know, we find ourselves back in our original world, which gets us the trophy, the Return Home. With peace probably returned to the world and their presumed dead second princess returned, the people of Lena's kingdom begin celebrating. Although Bartz and Krele are somewhat skeptical that everything actually worked out, the 2 of them decide to skip out on the festivities to try and investigate further, only to get trapped in a hole, at the bottom of which is an antlion. They kill it with little effort, but they're still trapped. Thankfully, Ferris was able to sneak away from the castle, and so she throws a rope down for us. Together, the 3 of us eventually find our way to Guido's cave, where we learn that since our defeat of Exdeath, things have gotten strange. Apparently, our world and the one that Krele is from are actually 2 halves of a single whole. The original world was split 1,000 years ago, in the aftermath of a great conflict with a man named Enuo. He had managed to channel the power of the Void, the primordial nothingness that existed before the universe came into being. After his defeat, it was decided that the world would be divided into 2, so that the Void could be contained within the space between the new worlds, the interdimensional rift. With the 8 crystals' destruction, the seal has been broken and now the 2 worlds have returned to their original form. In the middle of this explanation, a splinter that had apparently gotten stuck on Krele reveals itself to be Exdeath in disguise. He then proclaims that his true goal is to seize the power of the Void for himself. As we learn this, the Void begins re-emerging into the world, the first example of which drags Lena's kingdom into the interdimensional rift, taking her with it. X-Death then uses his magic to throw us out of the cave, so that we won't be able to get in the way as he seizes the Void. Our party then heads over to the Library of the Ancients, where the scholars from both worlds have been able to piece together a book that was divided by the split 1,000 years ago. According to it, there are 4 tablets that can be found around the world, which can then be used to unseal the 12 legendary weapons that were used to defeat Enuo. Based on the descriptions in the book, we deduce that the first can be found in the Pyramid of Moor. While exploring its complex layout, we managed to get the trophy Moneybags for earning 500,000 gil. Eventually, we find the tablet. Grabbing it triggers the floor to raise, bringing us to the top of the pyramid. From this height, we're able to see that obtaining the tablet caused the dragon Bahamut to awaken. He then tells us to find him at North Mountain. As we leave the pyramid, we pass by the Guardian Tree, where we're surprised by Lena's Windrake Hiryu, who drops her off next to us. It would appear that while she was in the rift, she was possessed by a demon, who immediately begins killing us. We're saved by Hiryu, who gives his life to purge the demon from Lena's body. This then gives us a chance to kill the demon. Our reunited party then starts heading over to grab our old airship. On the way, we get the trophy Legendary Warrior for defeating 2,000 enemies. After we fly into the sky, we witness as X-Death unleashes the power of the Void to destroy multiple towns around the world. With this catastrophe motivating our party, we set out to gather the resources to oppose X-Death. First, we head into the island shrine to grab the second tablet. It ends up being guarded by a spirit named Wendigo. Obtaining the tablet breaks the seal on the Fork Tower, which we then head to. This location works in a pretty unique way. Basically, you need to split your party into 2 halves, and then both will climb the tower under a specific set of limitations. The party that enters the Black Tower will only be able to use magic attacks, while the party that enters the White Tower can only attack physically. At the top of the White Tower, you encounter a creature called the Minotaur, who is pretty easy to kill. Meanwhile, Party B encounters a wizard named Omniscient, who ends up being a bit of a handful. The main issue is that you're using an all-magic team against a guy who can cast Silence. After defeating the bosses, you collect the spells Holy and Flare, and then the tower disappears. This then allows us to reunite with Sid, who is apparently stuck underneath it. He upgrades our airship so that we can dive underwater. This allows us to find the last 2 tablets. The third can be found in a location called the Great Sea Trench. While exploring it, I unlocked the trophy Senior Worker for mastering 5 different jobs. And then, at the end of the trench, we encounter the trio of Triton, Nereid, and Phobos. The main trick of this fight is that you need to kill all 3 of them at the same time. If you don't, they'll revive and then use Delta Attack, which petrifies a party member. Complicating this fight is the fact that they all have different elemental resistances and weaknesses, meaning that you can easily miscalculate and get one of them killed early. After some trial and error, I decided to center my strategy on using the summon Titan. This required me to make sure that all 3 were sufficiently damaged before finishing them off with Titan. Once they're dead, we're able to collect the 3rd tablet, which grants us the ultimate time spell, Meteor. It was around this point that I realized Bahamut would probably be helpful to have, so grabbing him became my next objective. The fight to tame him ended up going surprisingly well. I was able to deal enough damage fast enough that he didn't have a chance to use his ultimate spell, Mega Flare. After a quick detour to Castle Ball's basement to catch Odin, we head over to Istory Falls for the final tablet. When we grab it, a demon attempts to steal it from us. Before we can fight it though, it's killed by the Lord of the Sea, Leviathan. By challenging and defeating him, we earn the right to summon him in battle. And then with all 4 tablets, we're able to unseal the 12 legendary weapons, unlocking the trophy, Fabled Weapons. Our last stop before the final dungeon is the Submerged Tower of Walls. At the bottom of it, we find the crystal shard that was lost when the tower sank. We can't simply take it though, since it's guarded by the famed mimic Gogo. He tells us that if we imitate him, then we'll win. I'm bad at following directions though, so I tried to kill him instead. This sends him into a frenzied rage, and so he murders our party. Yeah, so it turns out you aren't actually supposed to fight him. If you do, he becomes one of the hardest bosses in the game. Instead, you're supposed to mimic him, which in practice means standing there doing nothing for 2 minutes, since he doesn't act until you do. For this, he congratulates you for mastering mimicry, and then he leaves this dimension. This allows us to grab the final job, Mime, and with it the trophy, Master Mimic. The main utility I got from Mimes is that they have 3 ability slots, making them very versatile magic users. With all these new tools, we fly over to the hole where Lena's kingdom used to be, and then we use it to enter the interdimensional rift. I just want to quickly note how much I like this dungeon aesthetically. It really feels like you're trying to navigate through a space where multiple layers of reality are collapsing in on each other. As we travel through it, we have to battle 7 demons who were sealed away 1,000 years ago and who are now working with Exdeath in exchange for their freedom. The first 5 were Califisteri, Apanda, Azul Magia, Catastrophe, and Halicarnassus. They were all really easy, so there's not that much to say about them. The last boss of the castle section, Twintania, ended up being a lot more interesting. So the basic structure of the fight is that it will use standard spells for the first 5 turns, before then charging up to use its strongest spell, Giga Flare. After using it, the cycle resets. An important thing to note is that Twintania's defense lowers dramatically while it's charging. Unfortunately, I was too afraid to try and take advantage of it, so I instead focused on chipping away during its normal phase. Another aspect of the fight that took me way too long to figure out is that there's a 1 in 3 chance that it will counter physical attacks with the spell Tidal Wave. After killing Twintania, we reach the final layer of the interdimensional rift. Here, we run into Gilgamesh, who's apparently been stuck here since getting banished. We point him towards the exit and he thanks us before going on his way. I guess we made a friend. Our party continues on until we run into the last of the 7 demons, Necrophobe. The main gimmick of this fight is he has 4 little barrier guys around him. You need to kill them before you can attack him directly. Once you get Necrophobe beneath 10,000 HP, Gilgamesh shows up to explode himself and steal your kill. From here, we're able to reach Exdeath. In the process of gaining the power of the Void, he has returned to his true form as a giant tree. In this fight, Exdeath has a strong but limited moveset, focused mainly on high-level attack magic. Unique to him though is the ability White Hole, which hits a single party member with both petrification and instant death. After an intense fight, you eventually weaken Exdeath to the point that he can no longer maintain his grasp on the Void, and so its power consumes him. He then re-emerges as an extension of the Void, driven to bring about the destruction of all existence, himself included. This here is the real final boss, and it's got quite a few unique aspects to talk about. The first thing to bring up is that it's split into 4 main sections, with each attacking independently with their own sets of moves. Most of these are standard abilities, except for 2. First, we have Almagest, which deals a high amount of holy damage to the whole party. Then we have his most powerful ability, Grand Cross, which apparently throws the laws of the universe into chaos. In practice, that means that every party member is hit with a random status effect. Hypothetically, since there are 16 potential status effects, that means that there is a 1 in 65,536 chance of it hitting the whole party with instant death. Everything at his disposal was initially too much for me, so I had to stop and recalibrate my party setup. What I ultimately did was that I took advantage of the unique ability of the Freelancer job, which is that every time you master a job, the Freelancer will gain its highest stat and its passive abilities. For example, if you master the Ninja job, then the Freelancer will gain the ability Dual Wield, alongside the plus 15 they gain for strength. These stat boosts don't stack though, so if you master a Monk, then its plus 26 to strength will supersede the boost from the Ninja. All of this to say that by mastering jobs, you can make the Freelancers surprisingly powerful. With Exdeath defeated, we're able to use the crystal shards to rebuild the 4 crystals, and then seal away the Void once again. This gets us the trophy, 4 hearts together. From here, we're going to have to go a bit scattershot with these next trophies. You see, I was unaware that so many of the towns in the game are going to become inaccessible, so quite a few things slipped past me. The worst of these was Castle Walls, where I missed 3 hidden items and a chest in the basement. In my defense, the enemy you run into down there, Jackanapes, is meant to be too strong to kill at this point in the game, so I assumed that you could come back later. While we're still in the first world, there were 2 Bard songs that also got destroyed. Alluring Air, which you find in Bart's hometown of Lix, and Romeo's Ballad, which requires you to get kicked by this goat. Jumping over to the second world, there were 2 optional bosses I missed. The first can be found via this underwater passage. On the other side, you find a Chocobo Forest, which just so happened to be the last location I needed for the trophy Adventurous Wayfarer. Just outside of the forest is a random encounter with a boss named Catoblipus. The main challenge of the fight comes from the fact that anytime you deal damage to it, it counters with Demon Eye, which petrifies the target. Beating him also grants us the ability to summon him in battle. The second boss I missed was the Gill Turtle, who's also a bit of a weird one. So in a location called the Gill Cave, you can find a little detour that leads to a path full of money. The amount increases exponentially from 10 all the way to 40,960. With each step though, there's a chance you'll encounter the Gill Turtle. By the standards of the second world, it's easily the strongest thing you can fight. The strategy I used was that I casted Float, which allowed the party to avoid its earthquake. I then maintained the spell Blink on the whole party, because every time you hit the turtle, it counters with an ability called Turtle, which throws out 2 physical attacks, both of which will apply 6 status effects if they land. From there, all I had to do was hammer away with ice till I won. It spawns infinitely though, so you'll probably have to fight it a couple times if you want to get all the money. And with that, we're officially done with all the missables. So now let's hop over to the end game to clean up the rest of the trophies. To start us off, let's talk about pianos. Throughout the game, there are 8 pianos that you can find. Each time you play one, your piano skill goes up and the little ditty you play gets a little dittier. Upon playing the 8th, you become a piano maestro. Outside of that, the main utility of the pianos is that by reaching levels 7 and 8, you unlock 2 songs for the bard job, Sinewy Etude and Hero's Rhyme. Moving on, we head over to a location called the Phoenix Tower. At the top, Hiryu explodes into the summoned Phoenix, but that doesn't matter since I did it in my first playthrough. What we're actually here to talk about are the pots that you find throughout the tower. In each set of 2, one has an item while the other is a creature called the Magic Pot. While you can technically kill it, the proper way to end the fight is to feed it an elixir. In exchange, it gives you a lot of job experience. All 10 pots count as hidden items, and so interacting with them ended up finishing up the trophy Item Detector. The next big task was finishing up the blue magic. The primary way I got them was by using the job Beastmaster, which at level 2 learns the ability Control. As the name implies, it allows you to force the enemy to use a specific ability on your target of choice. The most notable of these was the spell Mighty Guard. The way it works is that it applies Protect, Shell, and Float to your entire party. Suitably for such a powerful ability, the most reliable way to get it is to find a rare enemy, Stingray, who can only be found in this very specific area of the sea. Mighty Guard becomes our 30th and final blue magic spell, which unlocks the trophy Learning Genius. From here, I set about grinding for both my party's levels and their job levels. The first trophy this got me was Seasoned Hero, for getting the whole party to level 50. Following this, I got the trophy Lead Operator for mastering 15 different jobs, and then Management Laborer for mastering all 22 jobs. And now we get to the final 2 challenges before unlocking the Platinum Trophy, the 2 super bosses of Final Fantasy V. We begin with the robot Omega, who can be found chilling in the interdimensional caves. It utilizes a wide range of offensive abilities. Among these, the biggest threats are the many different status effects it can hit the party with, largely because they can throw a wrench into the party's ability to recover from the rest of its onslaught. For example, we have the ability Blaster, which will either paralyze the person it hits, or just outright kill them. Then there's things like Rocket Punch, which inflict confusion. On top of all of that, Omega has some of the most intense defensive chops in the game. It innately has the ability to reflect any magic you cast on it, and it also has a 95% chance of dodging physical attacks. Even if you do hit it though, you then have to deal with Omega's counter, which performs 2 consecutive actions. Both of these actions have a 2/3 chance of being Rocket Punch. The first action then has a 1 in 3 chance of being Mustard Bomb, which does a fair bit of damage. The second action then has a 1 in 3 chance of casting Encircle, aka the worst ability in the game. So what Encircle basically does is that if it lands, it removes the party member from the fight permanently. The best way through this Gordian knot of a fight is to hit Omega's one weakness, Lightning. The way that this can be done is by having a party member use Spellblade to enchant their weapon with the spell Fundaga. They can then use the ability Rapid Fire, which allows you to perform 4 consecutive physical attacks, all of which are guaranteed to hit. Collectively, the 4 hits from Rapid Fire only count as 1 counter from Omega, although if you're dual wielding, then both weapons are counted separately and Omega counters twice. By having both Bartz and Ferris do this, I was able to destroy Omega. This unlocks the trophy Ultimate Machine. We then head deeper into the Rift, where we can find this innocuous chest, which contains the dragon Shinryu. Compared to Omega, this fight is a lot simpler, with Shinryu having significantly less defenses, but making up for it by having higher overall damage output. Primarily, it throws out elemental attacks, but Shinryu can also apply a couple status effects, albeit not to the same level as Omega. A major point in my favor going into the fight was that I put the time in to obtain a couple weapons that do extra damage to dragons. First, I got the Dragon's Lance by stealing it from an enemy named Yura Avis. I then fought Stingrays until one of them dropped a whip called the Dragon's Whisker. The only complication from here is that I didn't realize that Shinryu absorbs holy damage, so I had to change out one of Ferris's weapons mid-fight. Upon defeating Shinryu, I received the trophy Field Research Professional, and also the trophy Legendary Treasure Hunter, and also the trophy Ultimate Dragon, and also the Platinum Trophy Master of 5. Overall, I'd say that both this game and its Platinum Trophy were fantastic. From a game perspective, I think it's very well designed, with a great balance of difficulty. Meanwhile, the story wasn't much to write home about, with most of what I liked centering more on its unique and creative world building. The focus of the story was much more on establishing interesting personalities and showing how they interact with one another, more so than like super robust character arcs. This can be best seen with X-Death, who as a character is quite literally incapable of developing. He is fundamentally evil and also the funniest character in the game. Like, he spends the entire game being like, nah dude, I can definitely control the void, like no one's ever controlled the void, but I definitely can do it dude. And then he doesn't. The Platinum Trophy was also really well designed. Not only did it feel perfectly paced throughout the game, it also had so many different unique tasks that you had to go out of your way to complete. It was a huge step up compared to earlier Final Fantasies, where beating the game and getting the Platinum were basically just the same thing. Ordinarily, this is the part where I'd go over all the things that I did for 100% completion that fell outside the Platinum, but there really isn't that much to say here since the Platinum covered most of it. Throughout my second playthrough, I went out of my way to do things like acquiring all the spells and leveling up all the jobs for every party member. I also made an effort to get all of the rare and missable equipment. In most cases, this was pretty easy since a lot of them had to be stolen from enemies in battle. The thing that made this easy is the fact that there's a spell called Return, which resets the fight back to the start. This basically gives you infinite attempts at stealing, and so the longest any of them took was like 20 to 30 minutes. The two items that I felt were the most worth mentioning come from the bosses Azul Magia and Twintania. For whatever reason, you can only get the Titan's gloves by stealing them from Azul Magia, which makes it very easy to miss. It's a similar case with Twintania, who has a 6.25% chance of dropping the unique weapon Tinklebell. With this one I got super lucky though, and so I got it on my first try during my second playthrough. Beyond this, the actual meat of the postgame was spent grinding to level 99 with the whole party. The enemies in the Rift Castle give the best experience, but the desert area has these sand jets that you can use to somewhat automate the grind, so it really just depends on which one you prefer. In total, the Platinum Trophy took 68.5 hours, which was divided into 35.5 for my first playthrough and 33 for my second. The grind up to level 99 then added an extra 29.5 hours, bringing our total for 100% completion to 98 hours. Typically with these games, I say that getting to 99 isn't really worth it, and with this one I think it's even more the case. The game design here is so much more focused on party customization, and so leveling just isn't really a factor. This can be primarily seen in the fact that the only difference you'll see going from level 50 to 99 is that your HP and MP increase. While it's unsatisfying from a completionist perspective, I think de-emphasizing levels is a massive positive for the rest of the game. After leveling to 99, I decided to reload an earlier save to see if I could kill the famed Mimic Go-Go. When you enrage him, his moveset gets pretty intense. The basic cycle of the fight is that for each of his turns, he'll cast 3 consecutive spells. First, he does 3 casts of Meteor, followed by Maelstrom, Ice Storm, and Aqua Breath, which is then followed by Frost, Ice Storm, and Aqua Breath. He then loops back to Meteor and starts the cycle again. The real killer among all of this was Maelstrom, which has the effect of lowering everyone's HP to the single digits. Getting hit by Maelstrom and then Ice Storm is basically a death sentence. The workaround that I figured out was to equip everyone in the party with ice shields. What this does is that it makes ice attacks heal you instead of doing damage. This gave the party enough breathing room to keep their heads above water. To deal damage, I equipped a knife called the Man-Eater, which does extra damage to human enemies. This brings us to the last unique challenge to Go-Go, which is his mimicry. What this ended up meaning in practice is that whenever I would attack, he would counter with his own physical attack, dealing 9,999 damage if it landed. That's the key though, if it landed. With our shields, there was already a pretty decent chance that we'd evade his attacks. Combine that with an Elven Mantle, a couple main gouges, and the spell Blink, and we were able to completely nullify him physically. Overall, I'd say that while the joke of finishing the fight by not doing anything was pretty funny, I actually preferred fighting him directly. He ended up being one of the most enjoyable fights in the game for me.